Realism in the visual arts. And so remember, Romanticism is in the background. We're going into the next major movement around the globe. If we were in just studying literature, we might jump into Victorianism for a while, but most places in the Western civilization, we're going to talk about realism next. Okay, so both people are getting a little bored or tired with Romanticism, but also birth of photography. All right, so remember when we say we romanticize the West. I mean, so it was really popular. It took a while for it to get going, but it became really popular. Romanticism, and so Romanticism doesn't typically deal with how it is because it idealizes, emotions, self, all nature, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so photography's in the background, and now note that painting has to compete with photography, and this is going to gain momentum over the time. See, these are real clunky cameras. It takes a long time to set up and get pictures and all that. Technology is going to change over time. And so realism comes to challenge the romantic style. And so first with painters. Well, how can I paint differently now? Also knowing that in the background, this camera is coming along, right? But we want to first talk about how it is, right? How is it, and how is life actually? If you keep that in the back of your head, a lot of these Courbet's painting here, and some of the others we're about to look at become a lot easier to understand. Damier's social realism. Really think of him as sort of making fun of powered people. And he's in France at the time, so we don't typically talk about him as much here. Even though Manet is also French, we do talk about him quite a bit and think about him. So he is not an impressionist, but he is, say, a couple decades the senior of most impressionists. And what he does is creates a lot of scandal in the French market. And this was a very important market. They had this thing called the Salon in France, and it was a big deal. There were a lot of think of it as a big painting competition, and the public went to it. Remember, all before television, before radio, all this stuff. So painting in and of itself was really popular with normal Parisians and French people in general. And what Manet did is he blew up the whole thing. And so one of the ways that he was calling a lot of attention with nudity, but subject matter as well, right? So, but this is always kind of so he opens the door for what eventually we're going to call the impressionist, but he is not an impressionist. He is a realist, or how we categorize him anyway. So he's taken it. Female nudity had been acceptable in European art since the early Renaissance. This is so funny to me. As long as it was cast in terms of classical myth or allegory. So you can have a naked lady as long as it's a goddess, is what this is. And I don't think I've pointed it out for most of this term, but if you sort of mentally go back through the Rolodex, all the naked women you've seen in paintings have been goddesses or some loosely associated with high myth for the area. Manet is not doing that. Manet here says, well, you got couple naked women here with outside with men eating. What are they really there for? Well, it's not the lunch, right? So the subject matter is scandalous, and in part because they knew what was everybody viewing this knew what was going on, but you can't put it in their face, I guess. So you've heard you've all heard about stuff like this in society. It's not that people don't know, it's that the back in so I'm not, let's just get out of this society. If we go into the old Grayson County society proper, so like if a husband had a mistress, everybody would know, all right, in their circles at the the country club back in the day. But you can't bring the mistress to the country club. You can't bring the mistress to church. You can't bring so there are rules to go by here, by God, and even if everybody knows, you can't cross those rules, and that becomes what's important. That's what he crossed here, is that type of thing. It really upset people, even though, I mean, this, to me, this is sort of silly. But at the time, people were really upset, and it created what's called salon de refus. So this created such a scandal that he got kicked out, and then they wouldn't let the Impressionists, what we're going to call the Impressionists anyway, into the salon. And so they started a secondary thing. They said, well, the works that get rejected from the proper painting scene, and we're gonna house those in this other one, because now we're gonna be the rebel artists. And that's where we actually get a lot of the famous art from this period. So that's why Manet is important. Also the paintings, of course, but he had a big societal impact. This is just a short one.